Alright guys, little, pre-edit here. Forgot to mention this when I was actually recording, but shout out to Xehther for making this thumbnail that I'm using. If you guys want to go check his channel out, I'll have it in the description below. He does what if videos over there, and some of them are not your, typical what if ideas. He does a lot of kind of unique ideas, and, his videos are pretty good. So go and check him out. Links down in the description below. And if you're watching this, thanks, man. Like, this thumbnail, love it. As always, enjoy this video. Alright, how's it going, guys? I am the Crown Clown, and today we are doing What If Deku was Sabertooth. So, I've pretty much put Cobra up first today, and that is the 1K special. But this is just like a special treat, now that Smoker's over, which, little quick deal about Smoker. Smoker is actually going to be having a special epilogue episode because you guys kind of, wanted to see at least one more episode of Smoker. So give me a few days. Actually, just give me about a week and I'll have up that special episode because there's a lot I gotta think about and come up with to make that work. So basically, I'm going to give you guys a special, episode about Deku's life as the number one hero, his marriage with Cammy and his daughter, along with Todoroki and Momo's relationship, and Inasa and Melissa's relationship, along with the whole family situation. And I'm going to be coming up with some custom villains that I'm going to be putting in there. So here's how I want you guys to be interacting with that one. Comment down below on this video or in the Discord on the Smoker channel what you want the villains' quirks to be. And here are your choices. I'm going to have 3 villains and I'm giving you guys 6 quirk choices. The first quirk choice is going to be gravity manipulation. The second one is kind of like Ace, so the fire manipulation, but on a molecular level, kind of like Deku's. And so the third one, I'm going to have it be like kind of a soul power to where it can control a person's soul. The fourth one is like Nine's power, basically. So lightning and weather control, but like think Storm from X-Men, that type of power. And the final one that I'm going to let you guys vote on, well, not the final one, but one of the two. The last two, these kind of go hand in hand though. One of them is like matter manipulation of metal, and the other one is sand manipulation. And so I want you guys to vote on that. And anyway, this intro's gone on long enough. Let's get into this. So, Sabertooth is actually going to be in this. So Victor Creed is in this one. And I'm going with the, kind of ideology that Victor and Logan are brothers. And I'm actually going to go with the form of Sabertooth that actually has the adamantium on his bones as well, from the Weapon X project. So, how Sabertooth actually married Inko, because yes, Deku's mother will still be Inko. So Victor, he came to Japan since he is the Japan branch leader of the Hand. He's seen as more like a multi-millionaire conglomerate type of person, like a mobster. But Inko doesn't know any of that. So Sabertooth meets her out there on the street. He invites her out to dinner. He woos her, buys her a few drinks, and so they actually have a kid, Deku. However, Sabertooth isn't in Deku's life at all. Sabertooth just kind of hits it, gets her pregnant, they have a kid, and Sabertooth bounces. He's back to his life as a mob boss. And, Inko actually gave Izuku Victor's last name, which is Creed. So, Deku's name in this is Izuku Creed. And he's going to have all of Sabertooth's abilities. So, he has those long claws that are on his finger nails and his toes. He has heightened senses, like an animalistic side, healing factor, and I'm actually going to make sure his healing factor is better than Sabertooth's and Wolverine's. And so, Deku, growing up, he actually, is a bit more resentful towards his father because Inko's told him things about his dad and he knows who his dad is. Like, you don't have a last name like Creed and, don't know your father is the only other person in the country with the last name Creed. So Deku knows who his dad is, but he doesn't know that his dad is Sabertooth. Like, that's something that's going to be, confronted later on. But, Deku, he's in elementary school, and, everybody's going on about, oh, how great their quirks are and all this and that. And, Deku, his powers haven't manifested yet. And, Bakugo, he's picking on Deku because the quirk doctors, they've diagnosed Deku as quirkless since it's not developing yet. And Inko, she's heartbroken by this, kind of, but she's not as heartbroken as it is in, canon. Because Deku, in this, he doesn't really look up to All Might or heroes at all. Not really. And Bakugo, he does bully Deku a lot more because Deku has blonde hair. He's got, sharper teeth, like canine teeth. And, Bakugo calls Deku just a freak. He says, what are you even supposed to be? And they make fun of Deku a lot. And Deku, he's not very shy in this. Like, he's still gonna fight because he's been bullied a lot more and things get a lot more physical. He fights a lot more, but he ends up losing a lot because Bakugo has a quirk and Deku's mutant abilities haven't manifested. And yes, Deku is going to be a mutant, not quirk anything. He's a mutant. He has the X gene. And so, like, Deku, he comes home, beaten up and all that. And one day, he's actually just had enough. He decides to go to school and he's determined once he sees Bakugo, he's going to hit him and he's going to beat him down as hard as he can. And so he sees Bakugo and, Bakugo, beats Deku down once again. And that goes on, pretty much a daily thing. And Deku, he is learning Bakugo's fighting style and everything, so he's keeping a good note of that mentally. He doesn't write anything down. And his personality, it's like more aggressive. He's a lot angrier and hateful in this. And he's not really cocky, but he's just spiteful. But he does work out a lot. Like a crap ton. Like, he's pretty got a good amount of muscle on him in middle school. And Deku, he's got this reputation as kind of like this bad boy who's, quirkless. So people don't really take him seriously. And it's his second year in middle school. And Inko, she's highly considering moving Deku to another school. But Deku says no, he doesn't want to look like he's running away from anything. And, you know, Bakugo actually finds out who's Deku's dad is. And, he comes into class and sees Deku. And he's like, hey, I didn't know your old man was a foreigner. And Deku flinches because Bakugo's talking about his dad now. And Deku says, I don't got nothing to do with that deadbeat. And, Baku's like, oh, somebody's actually, talking back. What's this? You finally got a backbone, you useless, quirkless loser. And Deku's had enough. And Bakugo gets right up in his face and says, your mom must have been pretty desperate if she just went with the first foreigner she saw. And the anger that Deku feels triggers his mutant abilities. And Deku growls at Bakugo. And Bakugo sees Deku's nails are sharpening. And Bakugo's like, wait a minute, I thought you were quirkless. What is this? As instinctively, Bakugo's not even thinking. He puts his hand on Deku's face and explodes it. And everyone's looking around like, Bakugo, what did you just do? And Deku's face is like, some of the flesh is like burned off. And the teachers are looking at Deku's face like there's blood running down it. And they're just like, oh my gosh, call an ambulance. And Deku, he says, I'm fine. As everyone looks at him and his face is healing instantaneously. In a few seconds, it's fully healed. And Bakugo is shaking. And Deku says, now you pissed me off. And Bakugo can tell with Deku's strength, a healing factor, and those sharp nails that he has now. Like Bakugo takes a desk and tries to throw it at Deku. Deku takes his hand and slashes right through the desk, cutting it in half with his nails. Everyone looks and they're just like, he's actually got a quirk. And the teacher's just like, must have been a very late activation. And Deku, he goes after Bakugo. Bakugo takes off running. Deku's chasing him down. But it's not like a normal running. Deku's doing a more animalistic run because he's checked out. As soon as Bakugo blew Deku's face up, he checked out. It's berserker mode right here and now. And like Deku, he's chased down and captures Bakugo and digs his nails into Bakugo's back. And Bakugo screams out in pain. He's like crying. And, Deku, he's feeling the blood. And that kind of brings him back to reality a little bit. And he sees what he's doing to Bakugo. And he rips his nails out of, Bakugo's back. And he realizes canine teeth are really sharp on the bottom and on the top. And, Deku says, I think we're even now. And Bakugo's like, what are you? And Deku looks at him straight down and he says, I'm someone you don't piss off. Talk about my dad again, and I'll do a lot worse. Speak about my mom, you won't be alive anymore. And he walks off. He goes back into the classroom and, the teacher says that him and Bakugo are going to have to go to the principal's office. And Deku says, well, Bakugo's going to need a doctor first. And everyone looks and says, what did you do? And, they see the blood on Deku's hand and, dripping off his nails. They're just in shock and fear. Like, Deku, he earned a reputation that day as being someone who's, like, vicious. They call him, like, the deadliest man at their middle school. And Bakugo's learned to fear Deku now. Bakugo, he's humbled early on. And Deku makes sure that Bakugo knows. So, yeah. And Deku, and he goes to the principal's office. The principal tells him, "You're suspended. Like, I know you didn't start the fight. I know you didn't, plan for that, and that you were defending yourself for a little bit there. But when he took off running and you ran after him, you became the aggressor. I have to suspend you for a week." And he says, "What about Bakugo?" He says, "Katsuki's expelled. He's been expelled. He'll have to go to a different middle school now." So Bakugo's no longer at Deku's middle school. And someone does transfer in like mid-year, and it's because like her family, had to, transfer her over because she was getting picked on a lot, and it's Asui. So Asui, she's kind of new, and she sees Deku for the first week he's back, and Deku's mom, she tells him that he's not actually having a quirk, that his father's actually a mutant, and he must have inherited his father's X gene instead of a quirk, and that's why the doctors made the mistake that he was quirkless. Inko, she's happy for her son, but, she tells him, try not to be brutal and use that power for good. And, you know, she knows of Logan, and so when Deku goes back to school to where he's not at home listening in or anything like that, she calls Logan. And Logan answers the phone because in this, Wolverine, he's a teacher at UA. Like, he teaches the first year, he weeds out the weaklings. So, Aizawa, he's actually not going to be Class 1A's teacher. It's going to be Logan. So, there's some fun that's going to be had with this. I'm going to enjoy this. So, Logan actually stops by her house while Deku's at school. And she tells him how Izuku has, Victor's powers. And he's just like, oh boy. And he says, what about his healing factor? And, she tells him that he had kid that had an explosion quirk literally detonated off right in his face, and he healed it in seconds. And Wolverine says, yeah, the kid's probably got a better healing factor than me or his old man. And she's like, what? And, Wolverine tells her, Victor's had a better healing factor than I have for a long time. Like, that's just how it is. He's got a better healing factor. So, of course, his son, since, mutants get more powerful abilities as the gene passes on, of course his son's going to have a stronger healing factor. And Inko is just like, okay, well, can you help him control that animalistic instinct of his? He nearly killed the guy. And Wolverine knows that if Deku's left alone, then he's not going to be, anything more than what his dad is. He might even become worse than his old man. So Logan's taken this as a time to teach his nephew how to be the right type of person with those powers. Since Wolverine knows he's one with a checkered past anyway, he might as well teach this new blood how to correctly use his powers. And to give him a little bit of training as well. So, Deku, he comes home from school and, he's just like, Mom, I'm home. And he smells someone different. He opens up the door and he says, Mom, who's over here? And, Logan's just sitting there on the couch chuckling. He's like, so that's my nephew. And Deku hears that. He's like, do I know you? And he's like, no, I know your old man, though. Me and him have a complicated relationship. And seeing as how he's not in your life, well, I know firsthand about not having a father figure in your life and where that'll lead you. So, let me introduce myself. My name's Logan. I'm your uncle. Got a problem with that, bub? And Deku's just like, No, no problem. But what are you doing here? And Logan says, I'm going to teach you everything there is to know about your new powers. I know you've only had them for about a week or so, but hey, now's the best time to start training. And Dex says, what exactly would I be training for? He says, to get into UA. And Deku's like, UA? That high school? No, I don't think so. I'm not into being a hero. And Logan tells him, it ain't up to you. I already put your name in. You'll be put through the recommendation course after you graduate middle school. All you gotta do is show up, show out, and you're pretty much in. And of course, I'll be your teacher there. And Deku's just like, since when do I not get a say in this? He says, since I found out you were Creed's son. And Deku's like, what do you mean? Even Inko says, yeah, what do you mean by that, Logan? And, Logan, he's actually surprised, like, you guys don't know who his dad is. And, Deku says, I hear he's like a businessman of some sorts. And, Logan says, no, 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 no. You're the son of Sabertooth, kid. And Deku's like, wait, the supervillain Sabertooth? And Logan says, yeah, I'm Wolverine. And Deku's like, so I have a supervillain for a dad and a superhero for an uncle. Where does that leave me? And Logan corrects him. He says, I'm not no superhero, kid. I'm an anti. I do things my way. And most of my villains, well, they ain't around to talk about it anymore. So I wouldn't be running that mouth of yours. And, Deku's just like, my dad is Sabertooth. The Sabertooth. The guy who ripped Angel's wings off and crushed his head. And Logan tells him, yep, same douchebag who's running the hand, mobster, overall not a good guy. And Deku's just like, what is this? This is a joke, right? And Wolverine says, kid, you need to wrap your head around it early on. Because you're going to live a very long life. And trust me, this isn't something you want dangling around. I suggest you make good on your years because, boy, you're going to be around for centuries. Deku says, what, centuries? And he says, yeah, with that healing factor, it comes with a few added bonuses. And Deku's like what? He says, for one, you have a slower aging process than most people. And Deku's just like, what do you mean most people? He says, kid, I'm over 300 years old, and I don't look it, do I? And, this Wolverine, he's just starting to get a few gray hairs on the side, so he looks relatively young. And Deku's like, no. And he says, your dad's even older than me, but since his healing factor's better, he still doesn't look a day over 25. And Deku's just like, this is insane. This can't be right. And he calls Wolverine a liar. So, what's he do? Logan pulls out his dog tags from World War II and tosses them to Deku. Deku can't really read the English, so Wolverine has to translate it for him. And Deku's eyes are just like, okay, maybe you're not lying. This is a lot to take in. And, Logan tells him, see now why I told you that I wouldn't let you, have a choice in the matter? And Deku tells him, yeah, I understand. Alright, when do we start training? Wolverine says, today. Get some gym clothes on, we're going out. And he tells Deku, oh, wear a pair of boots. And so Deku, he puts on some boots, some pants, and a t-shirt. He goes to put on a jacket, and, Wolverine tells him no. Besides, that stuff's gonna come back all torn up anyway. And he's like, what? So he tosses Deku, like, a wife beater shirt, like those white tank tops. And he tells Deku, put that on instead. So Deku does. And Wolverine says, first off, we need to get you some more muscle mass, kid. I can't have you going around looking like a, string bean and telling people you're my nephew. That's just embarrassing. So Deku is forced to go out in the woods with Wolverine, and they're sharpening his animalistic instincts and using that to get it under control. And Deku's a bit overwhelmed, but he gets the handle of it, and he does this for like the next year straight. And at school, he's talking to Asui because she's the only one who's not scared to talk to him because she didn't see what he did to Bakugo. And everyone never forgets that day. And Asui and Deku, they become friends. And, Asui asks, Deku what he does in his free time. And he just tells her, I work out with my uncle. So his school life for the next year, it's pretty much just him chilling by himself or with Asui. And, there's no romantic feelings towards them at all because Deku just doesn't find Asui that attractive. And, she just sees him as a friend. So, yeah, they kind of just call each other like bro and sis. And that's how their relationship is. So, it's, the last day of school. The teacher comes in and he's like, all right, people, let's discuss what you want to do with your lives. And Bakugo's lackeys, they're still in Deku's class, but Asui's in Bakugo's spot. And, he reads off, oh, 2 students want to, go to UA. And everyone's kind of shocked that 2 students want to. And he says, Asui Suyu, you want to go to UA? Well, I could see you, potentially getting in. But still, it's worth a try. I'm sure you'll make good. And then he sees Izuku Creed wants to go to UA. He's like, Creed, you want to go to UA? And Deku's like, yeah, got a problem with it. I've already been recommended. And everyone's looking at him and they're just like, who recommended you? You of all people. And, Deku says, and he has to remind them, he's not the one that started that incident. And Asui, this is the first time she's hearing about the incident. And, Bakugo's little gang of cronies tell her everything that Deku did. And they're leaving out some important details. So Deku slams his fist on his desk and says, if you're going to tell the story, tell it right. And Asui's like, what do you mean? And he says, what these idiots are leaving out is that ever since elementary school, Bakugo was bullying me for being quirkless. He'd beat me daily. Not until middle school, that is. He came in one day, started talking trash about my old man, and about my mother. So, that's when my powers manifested. And just so you guys know, I don't have a quirk. And, they're like, bull crap. And Deku says, no, I got something even better. And they're like, what is that? He says, I'm a mutant. I have the X gene. And his teacher, his eyes go wide because he remembers the day that mutants were like the feared people to be around or know. And he looks at Deku and he's thinking, if he's a mutant, who could be his father? Most of the mutants are died off by now. There's only a few that are around still. And he's thinking, and he says, hold on, Creed? And he pulls up like Victor Creed, like just anyone that has the Creed last name, and he sees, Victor. And he scrolls down and sees Victor's criminal record and sees the name Sabertooth. And he drops his little tablet thing. And he freaks out. And all the students, they pause and they look at the teacher. And the teacher says, "You're Sabertooth's son." And everyone is just like, huh? Who's Sabertooth? And the teacher says, Sabertooth was a notorious supervillain. And everyone sees Deku and they're like, your dad's a supervillain? And, he says, hey, my dad hasn't been in my life since I was born. I don't even know the guy. And the teacher's not buying it. He says, no way. Your dad had to have been in your life. Someone who could potentially have his powers. I'm sure he's kept tabs on you. Deku tells him, no. The only father figure I've had in my life was my uncle, who only showed up about a year ago. And he's looking through that because he's picked up his tablet and he's looking through and he sees Wolverine is, Sabertooth's brother. And they're like, you're Wolverine's nephew? And everybody knows the name Wolverine, the first year teacher of UA. And they're just like, wait a minute, Wolverine recommended you? And Deku's like, yeah, he's been training me. And everyone's just like, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. So what, you're going to be the next Wolverine? And Deku tells him, no, I have no intention of taking up the Wolverine mantle. I'm going to be my own hero. And to prove to you guys that I'm not a villain. Because trust me, for me to be seen in a good light and not have, prejudice against me at all, I'm going to have to prove to you guys that I'm a hero. That I'm a good person. And, honestly, after hearing all that, she just asks, is it really okay for a teacher to be giving out a student's personal information? And the teacher freezes and he's like, oh shit. Deku's like, yeah, you messed up big time spilling that out. And, Deku, he calls his mom right there and Inko is pissed. She gets a lawyer and she goes right up there to the school. And she calls Logan. Logan's not happy that Deku's, dad is getting flashed around there. But somebody's already, typed it up and posted it on the internet. Like, they had a whole recording of the teacher and Deku's conversation. And pretty much they only have the part of where the teacher says, you're Sabertooth's son, the supervillain. And Deku's like, yeah. And that's all they have. And they post that. It goes viral. Because Sabertooth is kind of a big name now. And Victor Creed sees that video. And he sees his son grown up almost for the first time in a while. And he recognizes that school building, the exterior. He had a contract there once before where he had to kill a loudmouth. And so he's like, guess I should pay the runt a visit. So he gets dressed, but he's not going out as Victor Creed. He's going out as Sabertooth. And, Deku, he gets down there, and Asui, she's asking Deku if, he's alright, and Deku's like, yeah, I'm fine. Because Inko's going in there with a lawyer, and The lawyer tells Deku, he doesn't need to be there. It's fine. This video speaks for itself. And Deku, that's the first time Deku's seeing the video, and now he's in even more pissed off mood. Logan gets there and he's about to wreak havoc with the principal and the teacher. So he's following Inko in and he tells him no training today, get some rest. So Deku heads on home, and instead of the sludge villain, he doesn't go that way because something catches his attention. He smells something, a scent that's awfully similar to his own. And he follows it into an alley. And, sitting up there on the fire escape is Sabertooth. And Deku looks up and he's like, "Hey, Dad." And Victor, he jumps on down and he's like, "So, my boy, you get any of my mutant powers, or did you get a quirk like your old lady?" And Deku, he's, bares his fangs at Sabertooth. His nails grow out, and he's like, "You're not going to talk about my mother. After all, you're nothing more than a deadbeat." And Victor says, "It's true I haven't been there for you for a while. But hey, I'm here now. I want to be in your life, son. After all, you have my own powers. And if I'm not mistaken, you're probably going to have a lot stronger abilities than me." And Deku tells him, "Yeah, Logan told me the old thing." And, Victor says, "Oh, so you're following the runt, huh? Well, I guess runts do follow each other." And Deku's like, "Why do you keep calling me a runt?" He's like, "You see your muscle mass? Nowhere near mine when I was your age." And, you know, Deku, he's like, "Yeah, I wonder why." And Sabertooth says, "Hey, don't you go bearing those fangs at me, kid. I can still kick your ass anytime I want." And so Deku says, "Oh, I'd like to see you try." So Sabertooth pulls out his, and Deku notices there's a difference. His are kind of shiny. Kind of like Logan's claws. And he says, "Hold on a minute. How come your nails are different than mine?" And Sabertooth tells him, "Because mine are covered with adamantium. That's in my skeleton." And Deku's like, "Wait, adamantium? You mean that metal they use in all the buildings now?" Sabertooth says, "No, that's a weak version. I had a more experimental and stronger version." And Deku asks, "What about Uncle Logan?" And he says, "The runt, his is stronger than mine. He had a more pure sample, wasn't diluted, and it was more raw. So he got the stronger mix. It was supposed to be me, but I got screwed out of that." And, he says, "All right then, we gonna do this or not?" And Victor says, "I really wouldn't want to hurt my own son, but since you bared your fangs at me, I'm gonna have to teach you some discipline." And he rushes at Deku. Deku can barely keep up. Like, he's been training with Logan, but Sabertooth doesn't hold back, because Sabertooth doesn't discriminate against, his own flesh and blood, woman, child, grown man. Like, he doesn't discriminate at all. If you've caught his attention and it's a fight, he's gonna go all out. And it doesn't take him long to just dominate Deku. And Deku, he's like, "What the hell?" And Sabertooth, there's a lot of blood on the ground. And he tells him, "You're too weak." get stronger. Then maybe I'll, train you. Or come with me. Join the hand. I'll train you all you want. I'll even give you a new shiny coating of metal on your bones. Something stronger. And Deku asked him, like what? And Sabertooth says, you'll see, as he knocks out Deku. And he takes Deku back to his tower. Deku wakes up and he sees he's, stripped. He's in some boxers and he's on a table. And underneath of him is water. And he's like, what are you gonna do to me? And Sabertooth tells him, you're about to get the old metal bone treatment. And Deku's like, what are you talking about? He says, this mix is a bit different from mine or the old man's. It's not just adamantium you're getting. You're also getting vibranium. And Deku's like, what? And Sabertooth says, yeah, this is super experimental. Not even sure it'll work. But if it does, well, then you'll have a metal stronger than mine or Logan's on your bones, kid. And so he puts Deku under. He has the oxygen on his face. And as soon as Deku's in the water, he can see these needles coming right at him. They inject into Deku and start pumping the, hot liquid metal on the coating of his bones. And Deku is in pain. So much pain that he's screaming, but it's underwater. All you see is the bubbles. He's shaking violently. He's trying to break free, but he can't. His claws are not coming out at the moment, and he's freaking out. He's having a full-on heart attack under the water because of this. And the scientists are telling Sabertooth, this is getting dangerous. This could be life-threatening for him. Even his healing factor could be overtaxed. And Sabertooth says, what do I care? If he can't survive this, he's not worth my time. And they continue. And when it's done, fully coated and sat in Deku, Deku's barely awake. They pull him up out of the water. They take off the mask, undo his restraints, and his animalistic instincts kick in. He pops his nails and he tears open the doctors and the scientists, and he rushes out the window, and he falls a pretty good distance. They're 90 stories up. And Deku realizes this, and his common sense comes back. So he digs his nails into the side of the building while he's going down. And he manages to stop himself. So he ends up climbing down. Since he does have those toenail claws as well, he can use those as a reverse type of Spider-Man type treatment. And he gets down there and he's looking at his nails with the metal. And he's just wondering how long it's been. He's running from alley to alley and he can smell his way home. And he gets home and he opens up the door. Inko is right there. She runs over there to him, hugging him, asking him what happened to him. Logan tracked you down to an alley and there was nothing but blood. And Deku tells her how to run in with Dad. And her eyes widen in shock. And she calls Logan immediately. She lays Deku down on the couch and he passes out. Logan arrives and, he takes a look at Deku, feeling him, and he notices he's a lot tougher than he was before. So he waits for Deku to wake up. And Deku does, eventually. It takes him a few days to wake up. So that's cutting into his training time for the 10 months, but he's out of it. As for the sludge villain, Asui's the one that got attacked by that. And All Might, saved her. So Asui's met All Might, but Deku hasn't. And so Logan, he's waiting. Deku wakes up and he's like, "Hey there, kid. What happened?" And Deku's explaining it to him. And while he's talking, like, Deku's getting angrier and angrier. And he pops his claws. And Logan grabs his arm and looks at them. And he pops his claws. And, he taps them. And he notices it's the same stuff, just about. And Deku tells him, no, it's not the same stuff. And Logan asks, "What do you mean?" And Deku says, "Well, mine has vibranium mixed inside of it." And Logan's just like, "You've got to be kidding me. How much is the ratio?" And, Deku says that Victor told him that it was enough to make it stronger than the old vibranium and the old adamantium were separately. And so Logan tells him, "Yeah, but you're going to be hurting a lot against sonic attacks. Vibranium absorbs, sound waves." And Deku realizes he's going to be hurt a lot by sound waves since his entire skeleton is made out of metal now that has that vibranium mixed into him. And he's just like, "Oh, great." But he says, on the plus side, you'll be pretty much immune against kinetic energy. And Deku's like, "Great. Anyway, how'd it go with the school in that video?" And Logan, tells him, "Well, that school fired that teacher outright. And you did pass, and I got them to remove those blemishes from your record. So nobody's going to know that you were a knucklehead. However, you got less than 10 months to train now. Since Victor pulled his shit. Anyways, you're going to be staying with me for a while just until I can make sure you're good." And he looks at Inko, and Inko tells Deku she's already talked about it with him, and she's accepted that. And Deku says, "How long am I staying with you?" And Wolverine tells him, "For the full 10 months, kid. We're going to be living together and training together for 10 months straight. No breaks." And, Logan tells them that he tried to get him recommended in, but he's going to have to take the entrance exam the old-fashioned way. And Deku says, "That's fine. I was actually wanting to." And Logan pats him on the back and says, "Yeah, you're just going to be like me and Victor." And Deku doesn't seem too happy about that. And Wolverine tells her, "All right, just like me then." And Deku's like, "That's a bit better." And Deku, he's a lot taller now because Wolverine, he's short, but Sabertooth is not short at all. Like, dude's 6 foot something. Like, he's incredibly tall. So Deku, he's around like 5'8", 5'10", and he's about to start training heavy with Wolverine. So for the next 10 months, Deku's training goes about the same. Like, he doesn't do all that cleaning at Dagobah Beach. Instead, him and Wolverine go into the mountains, and they climb the mountains. They train with sparring on the mountain, and they go all the way to the top of the mountain. And they're going to Mount Fuji. So, yeah, that's a big climb for them. and they're not using any safety gear. It's just using your own claws. You're climbing that mountain. And once they get to a solid edge, they fight. And if you fall off, you climb all the way back up. And so, with that, Deku's getting a lot of natural muscle building that's way more intensive. His lungs are becoming a lot more flexible to the lower oxygen in the air. And so, his healing factor is actually helping him gain a lot of muscle mass and strength a lot faster. And Wolverine's helping him work on his reflexes, which is extremely needed. So, after pretty much they get done with that, they have about, a solid 4 months left because Wolverine didn't make it easy on him. And Mount Fuji is huge. It takes a long time to climb that. And if you're stopping every time you get to a flat, place to fight, and then getting knocked down and having to reclimb it, it takes a long time. So they got about 4 months left, and Logan tells him, "All right, we're gonna take a break for a few weeks, let you deload and get reused to this atmosphere." And Deku's like, "All right." So he's taking it easy, and he goes out to eat, and he runs into Asui. And Asui, tells him, "Oh, hey, how's it been going?" And she looks at him, and he's just like, "What?" She's like, "You've gotten a lot more muscle mass so quickly." And Deku says, "It's thanks to my healing factor. Whenever I tear my muscles, they just heal all the way back automatically. It's a good way to gain a lot of muscle mass fast. After all, I spent the last 6 months climbing Mount Fuji and fighting with Wolverine." And, she's just like, "Yeah, that couldn't have been easy." He says, "No, the old man's a butcher." And she's just like, figuratively? He says, "Both." And she's like, "Oh." And he's like, "I have a healing factor. It's good." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And he tells her, "Doesn't mean it hurts any less, though." And she's like, "I could guess that." So they're sitting at the restaurant, they're eating, and Deku, he's eating like a madman. He hasn't had a good meal in months. So, yeah, he's enjoying this. He's ordering a lot off the menu, and he's got the money to pay for it. Because Sabertooth did have to pay child support, and it was a lot. Along with Inko working, like, they were good on money. So, yeah. And, he's out there enjoying himself, and he smells something. And he's like, "Oh no, not again." And, you know, it's Sabertooth. He's out there, and Deku can smell him, but he's a pretty far distance away. And he knows that his dad knows he can smell him. And he's like, "Not this again." And Asui is like, "What's wrong?" And Deku says, "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." So they continue eating their meal. Deku sends Wolverine a text. And Logan says, "Stay there. I'll handle it." So Logan, he tracks down Sabertooth. And Sabertooth's in some alley just chilling, drinking a beer. And Logan says, "Stalking your own son now? What, was nearly killing him not good enough for you?" And Sabertooth says, "I put a lot of money into that kid. I better get a return on it." And Wolverine says, "Don't think you're in any position to be making demands, Creed." And Sabertooth tells him, "Huh, the runt's actually trying to talk back. Don't forget, I'm stronger than you." And Logan pops his claws. And he says, "You want to bet?" And Sabertooth, he finishes his beer. And he says, "Sure." let's have a little fight. And, Osui, she's left the restaurant and she's heading home. And Deku notices she goes the opposite way. So he's feeling good. And he smells blood in the air. He knows they're fighting. And he knows Wolverine can handle himself. But still, Deku's can't help but almost popping his claws. So he gets up, he pays for his food, and he rushes over to the alley. And he's there, and he's like, found you. And Creed, he's looking back, and Logan's like, I told you not to come here, kid. And Deku's like, too bad. This is payback. So he charges at Sabertooth. And Sabertooth is ready for him. They lock hands, and Wolverine's still there. So he stabs Creed in the back. As Deku, he slashes his chest. And they're actually putting in a lot of work against Creed. And Sabertooth is just like, okay, I've had enough of this. So he ends up slamming Deku's head into the wall. It doesn't knock him out. The dude's skull's metal. It's going to take a lot. And Deku just grabs his arm and throws Sabertooth. And, Wolverine, he's like, I've had enough. This ends now. And him and Deku keep slashing at Creed, and he can't escape. And Wolverine knows where this is going to go. And he knows Deku's getting more and more aggressive. And, Creed whispers at Deku, have you seen your mom lately? And Deku's like, what are you talking about? As he grabs Sabertooth by the neck, growling at him. And, Sabertooth tells him, it's a shame you weren't home. You could have saved her life. As Deku's eyes widen, he smells and he can hear that he's telling the truth. And he says, what did you do? He says, well, she was ripping me for child support, but she was still working at the same time. She's home all alone. You two went on your little uncle-nephew bonding trip. And I figured as long as that woman was around, you wouldn't be going into anything, really. And he punches him, and he says, tell me what you did. And Sabertooth grins at him and says, I killed her. That sends Deku over the edge, full on berserk mode. He starts ripping into Sabertooth's stomach, his chest, his neck, everything. Deku's gone full animalistic. And he ends up killing his father. Right there. He overtaxes his healing factor, and it kills him. And Wolverine is shocked. He was trying to get Deku to stop because he didn't want Deku to kill his own father. But he did. And Sabertooth lies there. And, Deku has tears crawling down his eyes as he's screaming an animalistic cry. Nails out, and Wolverine, he tells him, come here, stop, you gotta quit this, get it under control. This isn't you, that's that animalistic side. You gotta keep a leash on that. As he hugs, Deku's like, don't worry, I'm here for you. I got you, kid. I'm not gonna let you go. I won't ever leave you alone. Your uncle's gonna keep you safe. Don't worry about it. If anyone asks, I killed him. And he keeps that secret that Deku was the one that actually killed Sabertooth. The police arrive. Logan tells them what happened, and they check the Midoriya household, and they find Inko's body, just the way Creed said. And it's front page news. Sabertooth is dead. Victor Creed killed by Wolverine. And everyone is just shocked to hear that. But Deku knows the truth. And, you know, to kind of make a slap in the face to Creed, when Wolverine asked Deku, what's his hero name eventually going to be? Because he'd like to start calling him that. Deku, he's going through all his dad's possessions because since Deku's the heir to Creed's fortune, he gets everything that Sabertooth ever had, including his old outfits. And Deku puts on Sabertooth's original outfit, the one with the yellow and the brown and the white fur around the neck. Yeah, that's the one. And he looks at Logan and he tells him, call me Sabertooth. And that's where I'm going to be leaving it off. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's pretty much like a solid 10 minutes longer than Cobra. But that's just because I really wanted to put that in there because it's going to be very important for the story moving forward. And that intro was kind of long, I'm not going to lie. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this episode, I would greatly appreciate you guys leaving a like, comment, subscribe. I'm the Crown Clown. And thank you guys so much for 1K. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see all you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.